Hi, welcome everyone. I am so excited to have Karen Newell here. She is the co-founder of Sacred Acoustics and co-author of Living in a Mindful Universe. And welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Harmony. It's so good to be here with you today.
Okay, well, why don't you start us off by giving us a little background, who you are and how you got into what you're doing right now?
Well, I've always been curious about who we really are. I asked those questions as a young child, why am I here? What is my purpose? And I was never satisfied with the answers that I got through religion, through science, the secular world. And so I really have been on a lifelong path of discovery to find out for myself. And I've read lots of alternative spiritual texts. And through that, I realized how important it is, really vital, to generate firsthand personal experience so that we can really get to know for ourselves what those real truths of the universe really are. And so I've tried many, many techniques in my personal explorations, and I'd love to share some of that with your listeners today.
I am so excited. I am very interested in hearing about the sound acoustics, and I love meditation. I myself, I've always been kind of into, I don't know, alternative modalities, right? Just the like new latest thing. I'm like, well, let me look into that. Let me look into that. What about this? Or just trying things out and experiencing them for myself, kind of like you said. And I did hypno babies with my last two babies, which is like a meditation thing where you put yourself in a deep meditation and have natural childbirth. And you're probably familiar. Some of my listeners may not be. And I've dabbled in meditation, but never really took it seriously. And 2020, I picked a word for that year and it was meditation. And it's funny because I just closed my eyes and breathed and tuned in to my intuition, and that's the word that popped up, even though I wasn't really thinking about it at all before that. And it changed my life. I meditated every single day that year and it was so transformational. I love it. So I'm excited to hear all the nuances that you have on top of just normal meditation or how people can't meditate. So let's see, where shall we start? Well, first, since we're a plant medicine, a podcast, we have a lot of that on here. I know that you said you've used some of those, and I think it was what we talked about was very valuable. So I'd love to just kind of, yeah, have your
Yeah,
take on
yeah.
that.
In my journey, I, like you, have tried many things. And I quickly learned, when I was in different classes and different groups of people experiencing different techniques, that some of people would describe some pretty amazing experiences. And I'd be sitting there thinking, that's not happening for me. And I thought maybe I was someone who really couldn't have these kind of experiences, but I didn't stop me from trying. And yes, I have tried different plant medicines, several different kinds. And for me, those haven't been quite as effective as some other techniques that I found. But I think it's quite valuable for all of us, really, to find out for ourselves what works best for you. And I found that it's really a combination of techniques that I've been able to develop over the years, being exposed to many different things that really have caused a lot of benefits for me. And yeah, one of those is a particular type of sound. And so when I first tried to meditate, it sounds like you had a little bit easier time than me, because you were able to at least tap into your intuition and trust that word that you got. That's wonderful. But for me, it was maybe 15, 16 years ago. I struggled with meditation through all the classes that I took. I learned how important it was. I learned it really was the foundation for any type of exploration. It was so challenging. I was a busy project manager in the publishing industry, and I couldn't quiet my mind at all. I would sit, focus on my breath, like you said, and all I had was a busy list of tasks I needed to running through my head. And so
Yeah,
I thought it was
that's
a
so
waste of
common.
time.
So common. I
Yeah,
hear from a lot of people, and not that every time I meditated was easy or perfect, or I didn't have, I've got 5 kids, and right, we live in this day and age. There's so many things going through our minds, and
exactly.
it wasn't, at least for me, I think the key that really helped me, that it wasn't about getting a certain outcome when I made that goal kind of. It was more just about, I'm going to meditate every day. And
Yeah.
that was my whole goal, was to do it. It wasn't to get an outcome or to be good at it or to, whatever. I just
Yeah.
was doing it every day.
That
And
was,
so,
yeah, that's really great because I didn't have that approach. My approach was I did have expectations of what would happen. And I did, set myself up to be disappointed when those things weren't happening. And so at some point, I let all that go, but I still looked for techniques to help quiet the mind. And it was a particular type of sound that really helped me turn that corner. And at first, it was things like crystal bowls or gongs, tuning forks. And these crystal bowls, brass bowls, that Tibetans use, are just absolutely beautiful. They're mesmerizing. Have you tried those too?
yeah, just on my journey, I really found all of those coming into play. And that was part of when I said meditation. If someone was like, oh, there's a sound bowl, I'm like, that kind of sounds like meditation. I'm going to go to that. And oh, we're using these tuning forks and this energy work thing. And I was like, that sounds like meditation. I'm going to explore that. This drum circle and these gongs. And so I did get to experience all of that. And maybe my personality really likes to just explore each thing for myself and go into it as deep as I want to, as long as I want to. And then sometimes I'll pull back and kind of be a little more moderate, but going down those rabbit holes. And I
Yeah.
love, even at the first, I love that you were looking for what works for you. And I really love your story and wanted to highlight you because plant medicine didn't work for you, and that's okay. And on some of these things, maybe, people say, oh, might give up too early or may not have done it right. Or, like some people that say they don't like pears. I'm like, but have you had like a ripe pear off of a tree that's the perfect ripeness? And you really don't like pears? Like, it's okay. I'm just wondering if you got like one from a store that was too mushy or too green when you try, you know what I mean? And so I
That's
wonder
true.
that
And
too. Like,
yeah, that's why I've tried it more than once in different kinds, just to,
yeah.
to really go through that myself. But with sound, the thing that really started to work well for me was digital frequencies called binaural beats. And binaural beats are really when you have one frequency in one ear, a slightly different frequency in the other ear. And what it sounds like is sort of a wah, wah, wah sound, but they're actually created deliberately to match different brainwave frequencies that your brain is emitting when you're measured with an EEG device. So that measures an electric signal in hertz. So 0 to 4 hertz, that's the delta state when we're asleep. 4 to 7 hertz, that's the theta state, that's the meditative state. And 7 to 12 is a focused alpha state. Above 12, that's the beta busy mind state that we're trying to kind of quiet down. And so these binaural beats, as it turns out, as I got more into them, that's what crystal bowls and brass bowls and tuning forks are emanating. And they're more in a natural way with all kinds of harmonics. So it's a little harder to kind of designate exactly what brainwave state you want to deliver, like you can with these digital binaural beat frequencies. But we learned quickly that if we created these binaural beats with harmonic principles, that we were then able to reduce the use of sounds like rain or ocean surf or even pink or white noise to help reduce the digital harshness. Turns out when you create them with harmonic principles where every frequency is in harmony with every other frequency, it sounds a little bit more like a crystal bowl or brass bowl, but a much more deliberate signal. And so very often our binaural beats that Sacred Acoustics produces, we're really focused on that kind of around that 4 hertz, not exactly there, but that space between awake and asleep. So that's the hypnagogic state where your body is profoundly relaxed, but your mind is alert and aware. And when I first started listening to them, I just fell asleep because, it's hard at first to maintain that border between awake and asleep. But I persisted, and like with many things, and I found, eventually I was able to stay awake and alert. And I started having some pretty profound kind of inner world experiences that eventually, as those inner world experiences increased and became more intense, amazingly, my outer world seemed to rearrange itself to kind of fit more what my heart's desires really were.
I love all of this. First, I've listened to some binaural beats, if I'm saying it right, and put headphones or earbuds in to do that. And I love the fact that you're using these harmonic, natural sounds and principles in with that, because I love the sound bowls and everything too, but why not take advantage of the best of both worlds, our modern technology and these natural sounds and waves that calm our body or get us to a certain state. So I'm loving all of this, and I'm definitely going to go down the rabbit hole, I'm sure, after this on binaural beats. But how did you see things shifting in your outer world and the whole going inside? And what I love about meditation and plant medicine, and it just pulls us in to that different world, the inner world, like you said, and how I'd love an example.
Well, I'll start with even going into my inner world in the first place. First
Yes.
was rather unfamiliar, well, it was familiar at first when I just had the racing thoughts. But when things got quiet, it was like, well, what do I do now? And I learned that setting an intention would really help to have some experience unfold. And the way that I learned to set an intention was not just with my words, but with my feelings, to feel a sense of what it was I thought I would feel after accomplishing a task or accomplishing a meditative state, and not necessarily, like you said earlier, having an expectation of how that might appear. And so really letting go of those expectations was very important. And I learned when I did that, then results were much more efficient and beneficial. But the other thing that would happen as I started to go deeper is that I started to run into unexpected emotions. And this concerned me at first because I thought I had a great handle on my emotions and that I, didn't really have any long suppressed kind of emotional issues. But turns out I think we all do, because in our world, I don't think we learn. Maybe now I see my grandson learning. He's almost 6. He's learning how to process his emotions very, very handily. But I did not learn that. And so what did I do? I did what most of us do. I suppressed them, forgot all about them. And, I know now that they'll come up in certain moments, that they'll get triggered by some type of external event. You'll suddenly find yourself reacting in a way that you maybe don't understand, or you assign some other meaning to. But when I first started to really go deep in meditation, I would run into these emotions and I thought, oh, those are getting in my way. That's not important. But what I learned from a spiritual teacher is that they're very important. And what she told me was, that's your truth. That is your truth waiting to be expressed. It hasn't had an opportunity to be expressed because you've suppressed it. And so that was one of the things I had to learn, was to allow myself to feel these emotions. And it wasn't always comfortable. I didn't want to feel the deep loneliness and despair that was coming up, and the sadness. I didn't know where it was all coming from. And I learned, I assigned some childhood events like a divorce and my father not being present in my life. I assigned some events to maybe why I felt that way. But the story is less important than really allowing those feelings to come out. And the more I allowed those feelings to come out and tap into them, then they were released. And that allowed me to go even deeper. And that loneliness was replaced with a beautiful sense of connection. And it was a Life Between Lives hypnosis session, where I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Newton's work, where they take you between lifetimes to find out what does your soul really think about your life here, and why are you here? What is your purpose? Those questions I had. And when I did that, I found myself in this void, this empty void. And some people, when they go there, they kind of panic. But for me, it was very comfortable. And so it was kind of like that sense of solitude was quite comfortable in that state. But when I tapped into that loneliness and despair, it felt uncomfortable. And so it's interesting how you can take kind of the same feeling, but have a different spin on it based on your own kind of shifting perspectives. And so the more that I did this, I felt like I was kind of tuning into the essence of who I truly was. And the sound helped me kind of get beyond the inner barriers that really I had set up for myself. And once I started doing this, that's when my life seemed to rearrange itself in very obvious ways. A different way of working, a different place to live, leaving a marriage that really wasn't beneficial to me. I didn't really understand, I thought I was committed. I needed to work through all this. I thought within the marriage, I could resolve everything. But what I learned after returning from one particular weekend sort of meditation spiritual retreat, I returned and I felt different. My vibration was different. My resonance was different. And that meant the person I was interacting with, I no longer could interact in that unhealthy pattern. And I noticed it, I didn't feel different until I felt that contrast in that before pattern. And now it was totally different. And it allowed me to realize this isn't good for me. I need to move on. And at first, when you do this kind of thing, you might lose some friends. You might upset some family members who don't understand, oh, you're changing. And what I eventually realized is that all of that kind of resolves itself through new friendships, new colleagues, new kind of associations that you do resonate with. And so I found that rather than focusing on, should I get a new job? Should I leave my husband? Should I live somewhere else? I focused on my inner world, and then all those opportunities just started showing up. And it happened over time. It didn't happen immediately, but over the course of several years. I couldn't imagine changing anything about my life, even those difficult times, because all of the learning and growth has come from me really learning from those direct experiences.
Oh my gosh, I was taking notes. So much good stuff. Like you literally like said so many good things. I'm just going to go back and recap on some of the notes that you talked about, setting this intention with meditation. And we talk about that so often, the setting and intention in plant medicine. And this is just so great because there's many people that maybe they're not in an area that allows legal plant medicine, or they're nervous about something like that, or for whatever reason they can't or don't want to. And just knowing there's other ways. Yes, you heard people with these amazing experiences connecting, but there's other ways to do it. And some of these same principles that we talk about on our podcast still apply. Set this intention of what you want. And this huge one, like total gold that you just slipped right in there because it's so natural to you, but this allowing the feelings to come out and allowing those things that we're stuffing into this, I don't know, I want to say turkey because it's November. We're just stuffing it all into the turkey, don't let it come out. We just want to hide it. And it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to feel them. And you're like, I went to this retreat and I felt all these feelings, or I did this meditation or this journey and I cried the whole time. It doesn't work for me. Like this doesn't work for me because all I did was feel sad, or I felt, but letting those come out and move through them, that key you said, onto the other side of this. And it's not, like you said, it wasn't this like instant journey. And it's not either, even if you have this amazing plant medicine experience in 5-6 hours, it's still not this instant journey. You still have all of these things to process and work through and integrate into your being, becoming, and actually allowing them to settle into your soul and who you are. So the next thing, let's see. Oh, I thought retreats. That was an instrumental thing in my journey too. And it still is. Like, I find sometimes I'm pretty good for a couple months and I'm like, oh, I can go 6 months or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, I just need a time to reset and be around that high vibration, be around people, noticing the patterns I'm getting back into, and reset. So I think I thought like, okay, I've done a retreat, I'm good, I've realized it, or I've done this journey, but going and really having some maintenance has helped me. Those retreats are huge, and going back to some big kind of space where there's people and energy that is where you want to be, just to remind yourself when you get out of tune a little bit. And then, okay, you said this big life changes. I'm just doing like the whole recap of everything that was like, yes, and yes, and yes. The big life changes after that is something that I've been kind of thinking about, because they say like after a journey, don't make any big life changes, like, within a couple weeks or even a month. Don't go and, quit your job and sell your house and divorce your, spouse within the first little bit. And there's something about, as you said, it was over a few years where you start to raise your vibration and you become who you truly are. And I feel like our partners and the people around us kind of have this choice. Like, do they want to come with us? Do they want to say like, what's going on? Like, or do they want to try and keep beating you into the old patterns that you used to fight with me. Wait, we used to have this conflict, or, and that's kind of like, there's this fear of some people, like you said, I'm going to lose friends, or I'm going to lose people if I grow. And do you want to just stay stuck in those unhelpful patterns, or do you want to grow and maybe you'll be that inspiration for other people to come along? And if not, it's okay, and maybe they're, like you said, there'll be other people that are on that vibration. When you get that inner alignment, and you said it again about questions too. So you said like, should I divorce him? Should I do this? Should I quit my job? Should I do this? And I loved your answer. It was so good. It's like, get aligned first, get that inner alignment and start living the way you want to live. And then those things just fall into place. And it's not like this big stressful decision that you have to make. It just falls into place when you are holding that alignment, that vibration. So I am loving all of this, and thank you for letting me just geek out on some of the things you said.
Oh, it's great. I don't want to just give a lecture, right? In fact, I learned when my daughter was a teenager, I was familiar with this kind of stuff and I would talk about it, but I hadn't yet fully walked the talk. I would talk about it. And she didn't believe me. She thought it was nonsense as a teenager. And she told me, I remember when she graduated high school, she said, Mom, it was a big deal for her. She said, I'm not really vibing with your belief system. It's not really working for me. And I said, okay, you'll find out for yourself. Maybe there's another belief system that will work better for you. But then I started shifting and making all of these changes. And now she's 35. She's pregnant with her second baby, my second grandchild, a girl who I'm so excited to arrive into this world. But now she says, oh my gosh, Mom, you were right. And I don't think it was through my lectures. I think it was through leading by example, just like you said. And I just modeled it. And now she knows when she has issues in her own life, she's starting to apply those techniques. And she's not waiting until she's in her 40s, 50s, like so many of us do. We don't, at least my generation. I think now I'm so really enlivened by the younger generations getting interested in this kind of information much, much sooner in their lives. And I'm just imagining children who grow up this way, like my grandson. He already knows how to process his emotions. It's amazing to watch. And he's the kindest little soul I've ever seen. And he's just such a wonderful example, even for me to follow. And it's so inspiring. But I have to think that, I'm a part of who he is today because of what I've been through. And I think it's a cumulative thing, not only in our own lives, but through the generations, how we can help people. And we do it by helping ourselves. Lots and lots of healers want to fix other people, but many healers haven't yet fixed themselves. They're very focused on the, external kind of thing. And the best healers are those who have gone in and found that resonance within. I was also very inspired by a particular form of meditation that I learned related to the heart rhythm meditation, and all the research by the Heart Math Institute that tells us that our hearts emit an electromagnetic field and it expands and contracts based on our emotions. So the larger fields are created when we're feeling joy or love or gratitude. The smaller field is related to sadness, anger, grief. right? And so those fields are actually, they've proven, are affecting the people around you without you even realize. And we know this ourselves when we're around people that make us feel uncomfortable, or the opposite, they make us feel safe and supported. And that, I believe, is coming from that heart resonance. And so I took it upon myself when I learned this data. I thought, well, I need to focus on my heart. If I'm going to help anyone, my heart is going to be involved. We can't help it. It just is. It's a happening, whether we realize it or not. And so that's when I thought, well, I want to focus on the heart. And so a particular form of heart rhythm meditation really helped me get in tune with that. And that also caused me to tap into emotions that I didn't realize I had suppressed. So it really was a combination of techniques that got me there. But the heart rhythm meditation, if you're interested, is kind of like matching your breath to the way the numbers of heartbeats you're having. And so like you breathe out for 7, breathe in for 6, something like that. I don't know, I don't recall the exact pattern. And there's lots of different ones for different effects. And you could also imagine that your breath is moving in and out of your heart. That really helped me move away from that thinking mind. And once I imagined my breath was moving in and out of my heart, then I imagined that I was expanding my electromagnetic field. So back when I had my job in the corporate field, in the publishing field, I would be at meetings and I would start breathing this gratitude in and out of my heart, say in like a contentious meeting. And then I would just watch and see how the people around me might kind of shift their attitudes or become more in harmony with each other as that heart field was affecting them. So having this very conscious realization of how all that works, to me, we talk about the golden rule, treat others like you would like to be treated. I thought of this as the ultimate golden rule, where you would only put or just really manage your heart in a way that it would affect other people only in positive ways. Because I would rather only be around people who are emanating this beautiful heart field. And I have to say, I don't know if you know who Ram Dass is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ram Dass, he died a couple years ago, but I met him in 2015, I believe. I was invited to Maui, Hawaii, to meet him. That was the reason that we went. And when we met him, he was in a wheelchair. He had had a stroke. And so that was just his way of getting around, was in a wheelchair. And we went to a restaurant to meet him, very busy restaurant. I had been doing this heart rhythm meditation and I felt my heart activate, which means I just felt this warmth in my heart and my attention went there. And I thought, oh my gosh, what's activating my heart? And I'm looking around and below everyone, there he was in his wheelchair with this giant smile. And I could feel his heart just emanating this energy. And that was the most powerful experience I had, aside from my new partner, where I encountered this heart energy before I really kind of knew who I was with. And that's how powerful it can be once you kind of get your attention on it. Another incident, I'll cut the story very short, but I gave money to a homeless man. And I didn't normally do that. And my heart, he was so grateful. I felt his gratitude. It was the most amazing feeling to feel someone else's gratitude kind of mix with your own heart's energy. And sometimes this can happen without us realizing what's going on. But again, when you become conscious of it, then you can really start managing your own energy in a way where you recognize that it's going on.
Yeah, that's incredible that you have that experience in your heart still. That's so neat. So Ram Dass was actually Richard Alpert.
Yes.
And he was a colleague of Timothy Leary when the whole, tune in, tap in, drop out, and all of this revival of the psychedelics and 60s.
Well, before the legal restrictions, he and Timothy were the first ones, I think it was Harvard, where they started giving it to students. And that's really why they started the legal restrictions on it. So he is I forgot about that actually when I mentioned his name, but how appropriate that I thought of him.
We just think of him as this kind of, yeah, Baba, this guru, and sometimes forget he had that plant medicine upbringing, or yeah, that's
Well,
not
it was
quite the right word I'm looking
LSD,
for.
the chemical version of the plant medicine. I think
Mhm.
it was LSD that he was that's what was around back
Mhm.
then.
Kind of
Acid. Yeah.
helped break him open at the first
Yeah.
there, and
Oh,
then,
and he's
you know,
amazing. But then he went on, as you know, to study in India and learn meditation. I mean, that's where this all takes you, is
yeah,
that focus on your inner world. And his
yeah.
"Be Here Now" slogan is just timeless. So,
So, so cool. That's really neat. So you were saying with your partner, your new partner, you felt something similar to that.
oh, yes.
Do you want to share? Is
Well,
that, you don't
unbeknownst
have
to
to.
me, yeah, this is Eben Alexander. He's the co-author of Living in a Mindful Universe. He's a neurosurgeon who had a pretty amazing near-death experience back in 2008 and wrote a book about it. His first book, Proof of Heaven, he called it, but or the
Okay.
publisher named it. He didn't really call it heaven, but they wanted to use that word. But
Right.
anyway, several years after his coma, I call those years after his coma before we met, I call those my spiritual boot camp years, or my modern mystery school years that I kind of just made up through all of my explorations. But I apparently was ready when I met him to feel that heart resonance, because this was after I had cleared all of those, unexpected emotions. But we were both attending a sound retreat. And when I met him, uh, by day one, he was pretty tuned into me. His intuition was off the charts at that point. And by day two, we were experiencing an exercise where we were asked to pair up with someone, and that's who I paired up with. And one of us would stand still, and the other one would walk towards the person and kind of feel if anything shifted, if any energy shifted. And we were, I think, trying to feel each other's heart fields. And so as we were walking in and out of each other's energy fields, I was feeling something pretty amazing in my heart, but I was afraid to say it out loud. But he wasn't. And he said, "I'm feeling the yin and the yang of our hearts joining as one." And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm feeling, but I couldn't think of the words. And when we felt this energy, it was a familiarity. And this was the heart resonance that made me feel safe, secure. I felt at home with this energy. And it didn't make sense to me intellectually because I was busy trying to avoid any relationships at that point. But my heart knew better. And eventually we went on to get together.
Well, I just have like, I could just feel in my body, like as you're telling the story, I don't know, lately I've been feeling, I don't know how to describe it, but just like energy up my spine and like this lifting when someone starts to tell these truths, how neat an experience this is. And I'm so grateful for you to share it. And I
Yeah.
love the near death experience when you were talking about his. That's what I felt like my first journey was, just like connecting me to this spiritual world that I didn't know how to tap into before. I'm able to tap into that more on my own now. Like I'm like, okay, I know what that feels like. I know I can get back in that state. And I've reached some really great, incredible experiences in meditative states also. So that's really neat. But you just hear that a lot when people have these near death experiences. Their spiritual side is left wide open, you know?
Yeah, for him, his spiritual side was completely shut down until he had that experience. And when
Wow.
he met me and realized that I had found this energy, in fact, I knew about near death experiences and I knew the kind of transformative effects that people would have.
Mhm.
And I wanted to know, I just cut right to the chase. So, what was that important lesson that you learned? And he says, the brain doesn't create consciousness. And I was like, why would anyone think that it does? Because I didn't realize that was what a materialist science, that's kind of the basis of their whole belief system, is that the brain creates consciousness. And he learned the opposite. And so when I said, why would anyone think that? He was like, oh my gosh, who are you? And he wanted to know, how did you find this out? And that's why he invited me to help others, using our sound recordings that I had already been developing with my business partner, Kevin Cossey, he wanted us to make those recordings available to the world so that everyone could find out what he had learned.
So cool. Is there some things you can give us right now that we could use to be able to tap into our intuition?
Well, one of those ways is to tune into the heart. The other thing that heart math tells us is that our heart energy seems to be collecting information out into the world because the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And so this tells me potentially where our intuitive kind of senses are coming from, not from our heads, like we think of telepathy, thought to thought, but feeling to feeling. And then our brain interprets it into a thought. And so tuning into your intuition is as simple as tuning into your heart. And so breathing in and out of the heart, just imagining that's what's happening, for me, that was a very useful way of tapping into my intuition. So one of the key things to do to really activate that heart energy is learn how to generate feelings of gratitude. Very easy to think of things we're grateful for, right? Like, oh, I'm so grateful for the sunset or for my mother, whatever it might be. But to feel that gratitude is quite different. And something I learned through heart math, and actually from a longtime heart researcher who's since deceased, Joseph Chilton Pierce, longtime heart researcher. And he says, generating feelings of gratitude, if that's challenging for you, to remember a time when you felt joy in your past. And so when I had this challenge of creating that feeling of gratitude, because I didn't know really what it felt like to generate consciously, for me, I remembered what it was like to be with puppies. When I was 6 years old, my mother took in a stray dog and she proceeded to have puppies within a couple weeks underneath my bed. I was only 6 years old. And to me, that was a magical, beautiful, natural, magical moment. To my mother, I'm sure it was just a big mess she had to deal with. But for me, that was the memory. And I've been attached to dogs and puppies for my entire life. And so at the time I was doing this, my daughter, she was a teenager, holding a little baby can also be a wonderful source of memory. But at the time she was such a challenge. I couldn't find that, but puppies did it for me. And all the dogs I've ever had came back to me in waves. And I started to feel this amazing sense of warmth and I use words that describe light because we don't really have a lot of words to describe love, the feeling of love. So scintillating, glowing, pulsating, words like that is what I felt in my heart. That's what I felt when I ran into Ram Dass, when I gave the money to the homeless man. But I had to consciously generate that first through memories of my own life. And I once met someone who said, I've had no joyful moments in my life. How do I do that? And I said, well, you got to imagine what it would feel like. All of us can find that reference point. You mentioned you had some kind of near-death-like experience during one of your meditative experiences. I've had those too, where I just feel this sense of connection and, forget who I am as a human, but I know myself as a soul. And we can all find that. And this foundation of gratitude is so, so important for all of us to find. And I have to say, anyone who takes the time to do that has my gratitude, because I know our hearts are all interconnected. One mind, one heart, one consciousness, whatever you want to call it. We're all connected. So as every person on the planet, as part of humanity, starts to do this, the rest of us will feel it. And so anyone who takes time to do this, please accept my gratitude, including you, Harmony.
Oh, I love it. I'm so glad you said that. I am a firm believer that we create that feeling first. And if we can, like you said, remember a time or imagine what it would be like, or hold a little baby or whatever it does, that's part of why I love this podcast is I get to hear people's experiences. I get to retell my own experiences where I was just filled with that light and love and joy. And I can remember it just, every time I tell my story about how it felt to the depths of my core to feel my children's souls and essences and feel this gift of life that we have that we're wasting most days. But just telling that, my heart starts to open and I start to feel that appreciation and that gratitude and that love. And it's that time of year where we are focusing on this Thanksgiving and all those things, but just saying it, like you said, doesn't quite do it. It's the feeling of that, and like attracts like, and then you find these other people and other people that are doing good instead of focusing on all the negative, right? So that is just perfect. That is the perfect ending to tie this all up with. Just anyone who's listening, even just pause it right now and take a moment to feel that in your heart, to create those feelings of love, of light, of gratitude, of emotions that cause you to expand and open and connect with all those other people in the world and all the animals and plants and sentient beings here, and just feel that for a little bit. And the more you can just keep that rolling. I know as one of my meditated practices I just wanted to feel love for 1 minute that day, and then 5 minutes the next day, and just be and experience and feel love as long as I could, kind of stretching those times out. And I did that with meditation too. Like, let's go a little longer, or just like you build your stamina up, you're better. You're not, but you can hold more light and love
There's a
and joy.
reason they call meditation a practice.
Yes.
Because you do it over and over again, just like if you're learning a musical instrument or riding a bike or anything like that. So yeah, how beautiful that you've done that. Yeah.
So good. So good. I am happy to chat again. We can totally, anytime you want to talk about meditation and all this stuff, I find it fascinating. I'm so glad we got to hear your story. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're most excited about right now, where we can find you, that type of thing?
Sure. Well, sacredacoustics.com is the website where you'll find all of the recordings we've produced over the years. Since 2012, we've been making recordings, and there's a little something there for everybody, a very wide variety. The Whole Mind Bundle is a beautiful place for people to start. This was actually used in a pilot study, this set of recordings that showed a reduction in anxiety of 26% over 2 weeks of listening. So that is kind of the first step, is to reduce those anxieties of whatever you're feeling anxious about.
Yeah, 26% less anxiety in their life.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's a beautiful place to start. But on that website, you can find little, at least 1 minute samples of every recording. And if you give us your email address and join our mailing list, we'll send you a free 20-minute Om recording that many people use for their daily practice. You mentioned building up stamina, but 20 minutes is kind of the typical minimum amount that is generally recommended for a meditative practice. So we made a 20-minute file to accommodate that for people. But if anyone has any questions at all, there's a contact form, and those questions and emails come directly to me, and I'll be able to answer any questions you might have. Where people start is really based on your level of experience and your personal goals. And so it can be a little tricky at first to maybe figure all that out. So I'm happy to assist anyone who might need some advice there.
Awesome. Do you do some mentoring or anything like that?
Well, I do teach with Dr. Eben Alexander. We've been doing some online courses off and on. We'll do webinars now and then. We also have another website. It's called innersanctumcenter.com. And there you'll find an archive of about 2 years worth of interviews that he and I did with all kinds of colleagues that we normally would have seen during that COVID pandemic when everyone's travel was canceled. We decided to connect with all of those folks during the pandemic. And so all those interviews are there. And we also have a membership element where people can tune in once a month for Q&A sessions, we call them. And that's where a lot of that mentoring takes place. And we're kind of a team and bring different elements to people's issues. So
How neat is that? I am so grateful for you, to you, that you listened to that inner voice and you became like we're all becoming, right? But you followed that alignment, and you're following this path where you are aligned and you're helping other people to be able to do this. Had you just played small and stayed small for fear of what you might lose or who you might lose, we wouldn't have you in this world and all of this incredible work. So that
well,
is
I have to
amazing.
say that, my job involved technology and everything behind the scenes. I never thought of myself as any kind of public persona. And so none of this would I ever thought I would have planned or expected to unfold. But I find myself living a life that really seems to be helping not only myself, but many others, and including my close family members and the world at large. So
So fun. I love it. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
well, and thanks, Harmony, for all you do to help bring this message to the world. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, one meditation at a time. We're doing it. We'll see ya.